Welcome back, everyone. It's officially the holiday season. Decorations are going up, and holiday music is playing like everywhere you go.
Yeah,
And
it's that time of year.
I think it's safe to say that our stress levels are probably creeping up too.
Yeah, for sure.
So, in this deep dive, we are gonna tackle the beast that is holiday stress,
Right.
and hopefully come out on the other side, feeling a little bit more merry and bright.
More holly and jolly.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We've got some really interesting research to dig into this time, from workplace dynamics to financial wellness,
That's right.
even some insights into seasonal affective disorder.
Yeah.
But before we get into all of that,
Sure.
let me ask you this. Did you know that a whopping 54% of holiday shoppers expect to end up this season feeling financially strained?
It's true. The study from Bankrate found that, a majority of shoppers are kind of bracing themselves for a financial hangover
Yeah.
after the holidays.
Yeah, a financial hangover.
It really highlights how that, picture perfect holiday ideal
Right.
really clashes with the reality for a lot of people.
It does. It's a very eye-opening statistic for sure.
Yeah.
It makes you wonder, why are we so prone to overspending during the holidays? Is it just really clever marketing, or is there something deeper going on?
I think there's definitely a lot at play, but one of the sources we looked at talks about this phenomenon called affective forecasting.
Mhm.
Basically means we're terrible at predicting how we'll actually feel in the future.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So we imagine this blissful holiday scene and we kind of overspend trying to create that perfect scene.
Right.
But the happiness we anticipate doesn't always match up with the reality.
Yeah, I can totally relate to that.
Yeah,
We build up these expectations in our minds,
for sure.
and then reality kind of falls short. It's almost like we're setting ourselves up for disappointment in a way.
Exactly. And that disappointment can just add to the stress we're already feeling from things like gift shopping,
Yeah.
family gatherings, end of year deadlines at work, even just the disruption of our normal routines. All that contributes.
It's like the holidays just amplify everything, the good and the bad.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
And speaking of work, I'm curious how all this holiday stress, spills over into our professional lives.
Well, it definitely has an impact. Employers, they can see it in a variety of ways. There's a dip in productivity, more people are calling out sick,
Oh, yeah.
and even an increase in conflicts between colleagues.
So how can we as coworkers or even managers spot the signs that someone might be struggling with holiday stress? Are there any red flags to watch out for?
Yeah, there are definitely some telltale signs. Maybe someone who's usually pretty easygoing is suddenly snapping at everyone.
Yeah.
Or someone who's always really engaged in meetings and projects starts withdrawing.
Right.
You might even notice changes in their appearance. Someone looking more tired than usual.
Right.
Or neglecting their usual grooming habits. And of course, a decline in the quality of their work is a pretty clear indicator that something's up.
I was really surprised to learn that 79% of large companies offer EAPs.
Wow.
I had no idea that so many workplaces had those resources available.
It is surprising, isn't it? But the unfortunate part is that many employees are completely unaware of these programs, or they're hesitant to use them.
That makes sense. There's still a lot of stigma surrounding mental health in the workplace.
Sadly, that's true. But it's really important to emphasize that EAPs are designed to be confidential and supportive.
Right.
They can provide counseling, work-life balance support, and resources for a whole range of concerns, including stress,
Okay.
depression, family issues, even financial worries.
So it sounds like they can be a real lifeline, especially during a stressful time like the holidays.
Exactly.
I'm definitely going to check if my company offers an EAP.
That's a good idea. I would highly encourage you to do so.
So we've talked about some of the sources of holiday stress and how it shows up at work.
Right.
But let's get to the part I think everyone's waiting for. What can we actually do to manage this stress and hopefully enjoy the holidays a bit more? Knowing that over half of us are headed for a financial strain isn't exactly the festive news we were hoping for.
You're right. We need some actionable strategies. Let's start with that financial pressure, since it's a big one for so many people.
Okay, let's unpack that. What are some ways we can prevent that post-holiday financial hangover?
Well, Bankrate actually found that 87% of holiday shoppers are planning to use at least one money-saving tactic this year.
Oh, wow.
So clearly people are feeling the pinch.
Yeah.
Some of the strategies they suggest are pretty practical, like setting a realistic budget and sticking to it.
Yeah.
That means really thinking about how much you can comfortably spend and just saying no to those impulse purchases that can really add up.
Yeah, I love that. The power of no. I feel like we often get so swept up in this frenzy of, needing to buy the perfect gifts for everyone
Right.
that it's easy to lose sight of what we can actually afford.
It's so true. And beyond budgeting, there are other things you can try. Maybe you buy fewer items this year and
Yeah.
focus on giving experiences instead of material gifts.
Right.
Or you could get creative and make some handmade gifts. I think people really appreciate the thoughtfulness behind something that you put your own time and effort into.
I get that. But sometimes those holiday traditions are really what hold families together.
Yeah.
How do we balance honoring those traditions with taking care of our own well-being, especially financially?
That's a great point, and it really highlights the need to be mindful and prioritize what truly matters. Maybe instead of buying, expensive gifts for everyone, you propose a Secret Santa exchange within your family.
You're right.
Or you suggest setting a price limit for gifts so that everyone feels comfortable participating without, breaking the bank. It's about having open communication and finding solutions that work for everyone involved.
That's a really good point.
Yeah.
It's about adjusting expectations and finding compromises that allow everyone to enjoy the holidays without that added financial stress.
Exactly.
But of course, financial stress is just one piece of the puzzle. What about the emotional side of things? How can we manage, those feelings of overwhelm and pressure that often come up during the holidays?
One thing that I think often gets overlooked is the power of mindful eating. Now, we often hear about mindful eating in the context of weight management,
Right.
but it goes so much deeper than that. It's about being fully present with your food,
Okay.
savoring each bite, and really tuning in to your body's signals of hunger and fullness.
I'm intrigued. How does that actually help us manage stress? I mean, I know I tend to eat more mindlessly when I'm stressed,
Yeah,
not less.
you're not alone there. But think about it this way. When we're stressed, our nervous system is in overdrive. We're more likely to make impulsive choices,
Right.
including, reaching for comfort foods without really thinking about it.
Yeah.
Mindful eating, on the other hand, encourages us to slow down, pause, and really tune in to our body's needs. It's almost like hitting the pause button on that stress response.
So instead of mindlessly munching on a bag of chips while scrolling through our phones,
Right.
we're taking the time to sit down, maybe even put on a nice plate, and really savor the flavors and textures of our food.
Exactly. And that shift in focus, that act of being present with our food, can actually have a calming effect on our nervous system. It's a form of mindfulness that can help reduce anxiety and promote feelings of relaxation.
I'm starting to see how this could be a really powerful tool, especially during the holidays when we're surrounded by so much tempting food.
Right.
It's like a mini meditation practice we can incorporate into our meals.
Precisely. And speaking of meditation, there are a whole host of other techniques we can use to manage stress during the holidays, but we'll dive into those in the next part of our deep dive.
Okay, that's good.
Welcome back to our deep dive into holiday stress.
Okay, so we've talked a lot about practical strategies for managing, those external stressors,
Yeah.
budgeting, mindful eating, all that good stuff.
Right.
But what about the internal stuff,
Yeah.
like our mindsets? Can we actually change the way we think about the holidays to make them less stressful?
Absolutely. One of the most powerful things we can do is adjust our expectations. So many of us get caught up in this idea of the perfect holiday, the perfect gifts, the perfect decorations, the perfect family gathering,
Oh, yeah.
and it just sets us up for disappointment.
It's true. I think social media definitely plays a role in that. We're constantly bombarded with these curated images of holiday bliss.
Right.
And it's easy to feel like we're not measuring up.
Absolutely. It's so important to remember that what we see on social media is often just a carefully constructed snapshot. It's not the whole story. One of our sources had a really interesting perspective on this. They talked about the importance of acknowledging that it's okay to not feel joyful all the time during the holidays,
Yeah.
especially if you've experienced a loss or are going through a difficult time.
I'm the worst about this. Last year, I was so focused on getting everything perfect
Right.
that I barely slept. I was snapping at everyone, and I ended up getting sick right before Christmas.
Oh no.
Talk about a holiday fail.
It sounds like you learned the hard way that pushing down those difficult feelings doesn't make them go away.
Yeah.
It's actually healthier to acknowledge them and give yourself permission to feel what you're feeling and reach out to others for support if you need it.
That's a good reminder. And speaking of tricky situations, how do we navigate those family dynamics that always seem to get amplified during the holidays?
Right.
Those long-standing feuds, differing political views, the aunt who always criticizes your cooking.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
like, those things are unavoidable at family gatherings.
Oh, Family Dynamics, a holiday classic. One of our sources offered some great advice on this, and it's surprisingly simple set-aside differences.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying you need to pretend everything is perfect or sweep those issues under the rug indefinitely,
Right.
But trying to force resolutions or hash out deep-seated conflicts during a holiday dinner is probably not the best recipe for a peaceful celebration.
You mentioned setting boundaries, but how do you actually do that with demanding relatives? Like, my mom always expects me to host Christmas Eve dinner, but it's so much work.
Yeah.
And I'm already feeling stretched thin this year. How do I tell her no without causing a major family drama?
That's a really common struggle, and it gets to the heart of setting healthy boundaries. It might feel uncomfortable at first, but it's important to remember that you have the right to protect your time and energy even during the holidays. One way to approach this is to be direct but compassionate. You could say something like, "Mom, I love spending Christmas Eve with you, but hosting dinner this year just feels like too much for me. Would you be open to doing something different this year? Maybe we could try potluck or go out to eat."
That's a great script. It acknowledges her desire to spend time together, but also sets a clear boundary about what you're willing and able to do.
Right.
I love that.
And it opens up a conversation about alternative options that might work better for everyone. Remember, clear communication is key, and it's often better to address these things directly rather than letting resentment build up.
Okay, so we're setting realistic expectations, acknowledging our feelings, setting boundaries with family. What else can we do to shift our mindset and make the holidays a little less stressful and a little more enjoyable?
Well, I think it's important to remind ourselves that the holidays are not a competition. You know, it's not about having the most extravagant decorations, the most impressive gifts, or the most picture-perfect Instagram feed. It's about connection, generosity, and creating memories that matter. One of our sources emphasized the importance of focusing on gratitude, taking time each day to reflect on the things we're thankful for.
That makes so much sense.
Yeah.
When we shift our focus from what we lack to what we have, it can really change our whole perspective.
Absolutely. And gratitude doesn't have to be about grand gestures.
Yeah.
It's about finding those little moments of joy, the warmth of your home, a heartfelt conversation with a loved one.
Yeah,
A simple act of kindness.
I love that. It's about slowing down, savoring those moments, and appreciating the simple things that truly make the holidays special.
Exactly. And this brings us to another important aspect of shifting our mindset, reclaiming our traditions. It's about taking a look at the things we do during the holidays and asking ourselves,
Well,
do these traditions still resonate with me? Do they bring me joy? Or am I doing them out of obligation or habit?
I think we all have those traditions we do without really thinking about why. Maybe it's a certain dish we always make for Thanksgiving dinner, or a specific way we decorate our Christmas tree.
Right. And sometimes those traditions are wonderful and meaningful and they connect us to our families and our past. But sometimes they can feel like a burden or they no longer align with our values or our lifestyle.
So how do we know which traditions to keep and which ones to let go of?
It's really a personal decision. There's no right or wrong answer, but the key is to be intentional about it. Ask yourself, does this tradition bring me joy? Does it create positive memories? Or does it feel like an obligation?
What if it's a tradition that's really important to someone else in the family,
Mm-hmm.
but doesn't resonate with you as much? How do you navigate that?
That's where communication comes in again. It might be helpful to have an open conversation with your family members and explain how you're feeling. You could say something like, I know this tradition is important to you and I respect that, but for me it doesn't hold the same meaning anymore. I'm wondering if we could be open to trying something different this year.
It's about finding that balance between honoring traditions and making space for new ones that better reflect who we are now.
Precisely. And that might mean simplifying things, scaling back, or creating entirely new traditions that feel more authentic and meaningful to you.
I love that idea. It's about taking ownership of our holiday experience and making it truly our own. And this can also apply to gift giving, right?
Yes.
Maybe instead of focusing on material possessions, we shift our focus to experiences, acts of service, or donations to causes we care about.
That's a great point. It's about being mindful of what we're giving and why we're giving it. Are we giving out of obligation or are we giving from the heart?
And those gifts of experience and service can be so much more meaningful and memorable than something you just buy at a store.
Absolutely.
It's about creating memories and strengthening relationships.
Absolutely. And it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. Maybe you offer to babysit for a friend who needs a break, or you bake cookies for your neighbors.
Right.
Those small acts of kindness can make a world of difference.
And it brings us back to that sense of connection and community, which is really what the holidays are all about, right?
Exactly. And that connection can be incredibly powerful, especially if we're feeling stressed or overwhelmed.
It's a good reminder that we don't have to go through this alone. There's support available both within our own families and communities, and through resources like EAPs.
Right.
And of course, there are always things we can do to take care of ourselves, like getting enough sleep, eating nourishing foods, and finding ways to move our bodies and
Yeah.
de-stress.
Those are all essential components of managing holiday stress. We often put so much pressure on ourselves to create this perfect experience, but it's important to remember that taking care of ourselves is not selfish, it's essential.
It's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. If we're running on fumes, we're not going to be able to show up for ourselves or for others.
That's so true. And it's something we'll explore in more depth in the next part of our deep dive, where we'll uncover some fascinating insights into the connection between our physical health and our ability to manage stress during the holidays.
Welcome back to our deep dive into holiday stress.
It's great to be back.
You know, we've talked a lot about mindset shifts, setting boundaries, practical tips for managing holiday stress.
Yeah.
But something that really piqued my curiosity is this connection between our physical health and how we handle stress.
Right.
Like, we often think of our minds and bodies as these separate entities,
Yeah.
but they're so intertwined.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We can't really address one without considering the other. And during the holidays, when our routines are disrupted and we're bombarded with temptations, it's so easy to let those healthy habits slide,
Yeah.
which can actually make us more vulnerable to stress.
That makes total sense. So let's break this down a bit. What are some of the surprising ways that our physical health can impact our ability to cope with stress during the holidays?
Well, we've touched on the benefits of exercise and how even a little movement can boost our mood and help us de-stress. But let's zoom in on a few specific areas that might surprise you. We talked about mindful eating earlier as a way to prevent overeating,
Right.
but it actually goes so much deeper than that.
Okay. I'm all ears. I'm ready for those aha moments.
Okay, so think about it this way. When we eat mindfully, we're engaging all of our senses.
Yeah.
We're noticing the colors, the aromas, the textures of our food. We're chewing slowly and savoring each bite.
Yeah.
And this shift in focus can actually calm our nervous system and reduce anxiety,
Interesting.
which in turn helps us manage stress more effectively.
It's like hitting the pause button on that stress response, right?
Right.
Instead of just shoveling food into our mouths while we're scrolling through our phones or watching TV,
Right.
we're actually taking the time to be present with our food and enjoy the experience.
Exactly. And when we're more present with our food, we're also more likely to tune in to our body's signals of hunger and fullness.
Right.
This helps us avoid overeating, which can lead to, feelings of sluggishness, guilt, even digestive discomfort,
Yeah.
all of which can just add to our stress levels.
So mindful eating is a win-win. It helps us manage stress, and it helps us avoid those post-holiday regrets about eating one too many gingerbread cookies.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. But what about those late nights we all seem to pull during the holidays?
Yeah.
Whether it's wrapping presents, baking cookies, attending parties, our sleep schedules often take a hit.
Oh, I know I'm guilty of that.
Yeah.
But you're bringing up a crucial point. Sleep deprivation can actually wreak havoc on our ability to handle stress.
Oh, yeah?
When we're sleep deprived, our bodies produce more of the stress hormone cortisol,
Okay.
which makes us more irritable, more reactive, and less able to cope with challenging situations.
So those late nights, trying to get everything perfect might actually be backfiring?
Exactly.
It's like we're creating this self-perpetuating cycle of stress and fatigue.
And the holidays are already a time when our stress levels are naturally higher.
Right?
So prioritizing sleep is even more important.
Okay.
Aiming for 7-8 hours of quality sleep each night can make a huge difference in how you feel and how well you manage those inevitable holiday stressors.
I'm definitely going to try to prioritize sleep this year. It's funny how we often sacrifice the things that are best for us when we're feeling stressed.
Yeah.
Speaking of things we often neglect,
Yeah.
what about hydration?
Oh, yeah.
Does that play a role in stress management?
Absolutely. Even mild dehydration can have a negative impact on our mood, our energy levels, and our cognitive function. And during the holidays, it's so easy to become dehydrated, especially if we're indulging in those festive cocktails.
Well, that's right. Alcohol is a diuretic, so it can actually dehydrate us.
Yeah.
It's ironic that those holiday parties that are meant to be fun and relaxing might be contributing to our stress levels.
It's a good reminder to be mindful of our alcohol intake and to stay hydrated by drinking plenty of water throughout the day, especially if we are consuming alcoholic beverages.
We've talked about food, sleep, hydration.
Right.
It seems like taking care of our basic physical needs is a really powerful foundation for managing stress. Is there anything else we should be aware of?
There is one area that's getting more attention but is often overlooked during the holiday season is gut health.
Okay, gut health. How does
Yeah.
that relate to holiday stress?
Well, there's a fascinating connection between our gut microbiome, that's the trillions of bacteria that live in our digestive tract,
Right.
and our brain health.
You're telling me that those tiny little microbes in our gut can actually influence our mood and stress levels? That's wild.
It is pretty incredible. These gut bacteria actually play a role in producing neurotransmitters like serotonin and dopamine,
Okay.
which are key for regulating mood, sleep, and even our stress response.
So if our gut microbiome is out of balance, it can actually make us more vulnerable to stress.
Exactly.
That's something I never would have considered.
Yeah, and think about what happens during the holidays. We often indulge in rich, sugary foods. We increase our alcohol consumption, and our normal eating routines get disrupted. All of these factors can disrupt the balance of bacteria in our gut, potentially exacerbating our stress levels.
So basically, all those holiday treats that we love might be contributing to our stress.
Well, it's not about depriving ourselves of all the holiday goodies,
Right.
but it's about balance. It's about making sure we're also nourishing our gut with foods that support a healthy microbiome.
So what are some things we can do to support our gut health during the holidays?
One key strategy is to incorporate probiotic-rich foods into our diet. Think yogurt, kefir sauerkraut, kimchi kombucha. These fermented foods are teeming with beneficial bacteria that can help restore balance in our gut.
So instead of reaching for another slice of pie, maybe I should grab some yogurt or kimchi.
That's a great idea. And don't forget about prebiotic-rich foods, which act as food for the good bacteria in our gut. Things like onions, garlic, bananas, asparagus, and oats are all great sources of prebiotics.
Wow, this is really eye-opening. I never realized how much our physical health could impact our ability to handle stress, especially during the holidays. It's like a whole new layer of self-care that I never considered before.
I'm so glad to hear that. It's about taking a holistic approach to stress management, recognizing that our minds and bodies are interconnected and making choices that support our overall well-being.
And ultimately, that's what this deep dive has been all about, equipping ourselves with the knowledge and tools to navigate the holidays in a way that feels more intentional, less stressful, and more joyful.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you too. And to all our listeners out there, we hope you found this deep dive helpful. Remember, the holidays are a time for connection, generosity, and creating memories that matter. Be kind to yourself, prioritize your well-being, and most importantly, enjoy the season.